Hi YouTube family, this is Yvonne from Ginger Chick Rehab. Today is my thrift store trash to treasure makeover video. We do a lot of thrift store makeovers on our channel, including furniture flips, showing you how to give tired, unwanted, unloved thrift store finds a new purpose, a new life. Today's video of my thrift store makeovers is part of Sunday Fun Day. Sunday Fun Day is where I co-host with Janie and Diane of Decor Easy. Down in my description is a link to Diane and Yanni's channel. Hop on over. They do some amazing DIYs, some farmhouse decor, and put a vignette together like no other. Along with their channel link, I will include the playlist link down in my description box. This is a playlist where YouTube creators can show their creativity and their talents and share them with you. It's an open collab. That means they can put whatever they'd like in it, a thrift haul, just show you their home decor, show you a DIY. So this is a great video, great playlist just to sit back and get something to drink, get a little snack if you feel the need to, and watch. So let's get right into the items that I have thrifted over the last month that I'm going to be making over for my Sunday Fun Day thrift stores makeovers. We're going to start off with these candlesticks and that little bitty wooden jar. I just absolutely love making over candlesticks. The pair of the black candlesticks were $6.09 for the pair, and I'm going to be making these over in white. And then this one was $3.99 from the Salvation Army, and I'm going to try to take the finish off and see what I can do to upcycle that a little bit. I love these little natural ones for 99 cents a piece, and that little jar. After showing my thrift haul, the reviews on these two little matching piggies, that they needed some dowel rods and they were supposed to be bookends, but I just want to make them into decorative pieces, and along with that cutting board. And I thought all of these, the little piggies were $3.09 for the set, and that cute little, that just beautiful woodwork on this little cutting board, $3.09 also. So it wouldn't be doing farmhouse decor if I did not thrift some farmhouse animals. I loved that little chicken for 99 cents, and then this chicken recipe book holder iPad in your kitchen. I just absolutely love that. Thought that was a great find for $3.09. And then this heavy black pig, though I probably would not write with chalk on it, for $4.99. I thought that was a great piece. It is very nice and heavy. So this is a grouping of some metal pieces that I have thrifted throughout the month. I always look for metal. I find they are a easy flip. So I absolutely love the shape of this clock. I know that is not vintage. That's why I do not mind painting over it for $3.09. And then this galvanized toe had great reviews on my thrift haul for $2.99. And I know a lot of people didn't want me to paint it, but I had a vision for it. And though for $6.09 for this picture, the chickens just got me. I just absolutely loved it. And for my vision for that, I thought the price range that I could at least double on it would make it worth it. It's a very unique picture. Though you may think that the lids on these jars are just a quick fix, but they are a hot mess. There is a ton of wear on them. And then even though I've already displayed this in my Christmas decor, I wanted to share this flip in case you ran across one of these metal wagons. I just absolutely loved this find. And I just loved everything about this little mailbox. The $4.09 price tag was just perfect. I know that it was already white, but it was kind of not a very nice white. I just absolutely thought this was a great find, and I'm super excited to give it the Ginger Chick color it deserved. And any type of little washboard, even though this is not the style that I would go for, I knew that I could make it over. But these sell really well in my retail booth, so I snagged them up. And especially for that $2.09 price tag, I thought that was a great find, since this really isn't a big washboard. And I definitely love finding these natural wood pieces and these cutting boards, because then I can make them any color and into anything I want. So long as they are reasonably priced, I never pass them up. So the little cutting board at the $109, and then that brand new one, I absolutely loved the round for $209. and then 509 and 309 for these beautiful wood pieces, though they do have some oil dots on them. So the first thing I was going to start right off with was anything that I needed to fill a hole, because that was going to be an item that was going to need to sit to the side and let that harden up and dry. So I'm using the Durham water potty. Oh my gosh, this is a game changer for any DIY, any furniture flipper, or if you're just trying to upcycle a item at home. Just a little bit of the powder, a little bit of the water to the consistency you want, and it fills holes in just beautifully. So what I'm doing here, it's a hole, so I need something to stop it from going all the way through, so I'm just putting a little bit of masking tape. And in our workshop, I just keep this bottle of water because it really just takes a little bit of the water, and then I just use a little Dixie cup. I had a viewer suggest that, a great idea, thank you. And then just a little bit of the powder to, like I said, the consistency that's easy for you to work with, and then I just put it in that hole and let it dry. And remember, if you like these kind of thrift store trash to treasure flips, please subscribe to my channel. That lets me know that this is worth my time, and that doing this and helping you all learn to resell or flip items for yourself. So I have to say, when I picked this up when I was out thrifting, I did not notice that that handle was broken, especially for the $609 price tag. I probably would have passed it up, but knowing that I have this wonderful Star Blond glue and this E6000 glue, I knew that I was not going to worry about sticking that metal handle back together. So what I'm doing now, same thing, like, letting that water putty harden, I'm attaching this handle back on using a little bit of this E6000. That is a great bond, but it takes a while to dry. And then kind of like how some of you use the hot glue for instant bond, this is what I'm using, that Star Bond. I'm just putting a little bit of that on, and it has that accelerator that dries in the 15 seconds. And then I'll be attaching a little bit of masking tape kind of as a clamp just to hold it in place and then let it dry. And I always love to share this tip to make sure that you put your glue tips, even that E6000, put that little tip in a little bit of Vaseline just so that lid does not glue onto the bottle. So when it comes to this washboard, I'm going to be taping the entire wood section of this off. When I just want to be redoing the metal of this piece, and I buy my masking tape at the dollar store, so cost efficient. I'm not worried about it, especially since I did thrift this for $209, and washboards sell real well for me. So for me, when it comes to flipping items, I absolutely love taking all the hardware off if I can. I like to paint that separately. I just like a little bit crisper lines, and I'm not going to be painting it the same color as this mailbox anyway, so I remove any hardware. And as you can see, the inside of this mailbox has some kind of a mystery stain, or maybe it was a bleed through. And I did end up taping the metal of that mailbox also, just because I wasn't sure if I was going to be spray painting this, and just the way that it's curved, it was hard just to put a piece of paper over. So the nice thing about doing this before I went to my day job is that water putty is nice and set up, and it dries nice and hard, and it sticks in there, but it is very sandable. I can't say enough about this product. So all I'm doing is just sanding that down so that there's not that going over it. I just want that round little circle. And then along with this other cutting board that was actually maybe used, I want to make sure that I get it nice and even, and any oils that might be off by sanding it. Now for this candlestick, I'm going to try to Waverly wax it to give it a little bit of an aged look. And I have to say, there's a little bit of a top coat, but sometimes when you get these mass-produced products, there's not a lot of top coat. So I knew that I would be able to just hand sand most of this off. And then when I thrifted this little jar for 99 cents, I just could not pass it up. But you know that should have been more of a natural color, so just the age of touching or oils on it, I need to get this prepped by sanding it off too. And then for this cutting board, I don't want you to think that these letters aren't raised, even though they look like they're stamped on. There's always a little bit of raise, so if I go to paint that will just show through that paint. So take a few minutes and get that sanded till it's nice and smooth. So while I'm assessing all my items, I get any price tags off, any store tags, anything say that this might be a flipped item. And then after I sand them, I like to clean the items after I sand them. And then this crud cutter is a great prep. It's a great deglosser. Gets any crud that might be left behind on these items that would prevent paint from sticking. So when I was cleaning this piece, the base fell off. So apparently between me sanding it and me cleaning it, it was loose anyway. So this is a great time. That's why I always say to get your hands on these pieces, because you definitely do not want this to happen to a customer when you are selling it and they are buying it. So this is where that Starbond glue, that CA glue, comes in so handy, because when you're in the middle of doing all this, you put a little bit of this glue on and then you spray the activator, and then 15 seconds you're ready to move on and working on this piece. So when I thrifted this little piece, I knew that this would be a fun project for Chris to play with. Part of that Starbond glue that we were given, that it has a colored one, kind of like an epoxy, but it's a glue. So this little cutting board had lots of holes where they had inlaid all those beautiful pieces of cut wood, but there were holes. And so if you wanted to use it as, which I would probably use it as decor, you kind of want to fill into that so like dirt and debris doesn't go into that. So I thought that was a great project for him to get to try out this dark glue on. Now he could have used the spray activator on this, but he was trying to fill in those holes, so he kind of just let it settle to where it needed to settle, and he applied a couple different coats just to fill in those holes, those crevices. And so now the nice thing about this is that it is sandable also, so he's just taking the orbital sander and getting any of that where over glued, where you can see that dark, to make it nice and smooth, and that is just filled in the holes and crevices. And this is a piece that I know that we're keeping for ourselves. So this was a nice little tester piece. This is the first time we have tried to do that, but I just absolutely love the way it filled in those holes, and that you don't have to worry, like I said, about dust and debris going in those. And then he's just putting a little bit of Waverly wax in just to seal this piece. Like I said, we're keeping this for ourselves, and I'm just going to use it as decor, maybe set a candle on it. I just absolutely love it. I just love all those little wooden inserted pieces, and I feel so much better that those little crevices are filled. So now I have all this natural wood that I'm going to be using, that Waverly antiquing wax also. And so I have all these little risers that I want to make, and all these little spindles, these little finials, these little legs. We buy these from a gentleman that turns them at our antique booth. I wish he had a website that I could link them to. I absolutely think that they are gorgeous. I love definitely supporting somebody local, and I just love the uniqueness of all the shapes. And yes, if you wanted to use a real stain, you could do that, but I absolutely love the convenience and the easiness of using the Waverly wax. It brings out that wood grain just like a stain would, and then I don't have to polyurethane or polyacrylic over it. So I absolutely love this step, especially as a flipper. For the price that I can charge in my area for these type of items, this just makes it so easy. And you could use this full strength if you wanted to, and if you wanted it to be a little bit lighter, you can add some water. I learned that from Julie of Julie's Designs. Just a great tip. I never thought about watering it down, so that is another option if you don't want your woods to be quite as dark. And I absolutely love how the Waverly wax is staining. I was a little bit leery about that, and I know that you see the holes, but I wanted to see the holes. I think it's that perfectly imperfect. It's just a nice little piggy and a nice little decor piece. So now I'm on to the items that I'm going to be spray painting, and my go-to is the Rust-Oleum Paint and Primer one, and I usually always start off with the undercoat of black, or sometimes that's their finished coat, but I absolutely love the way that this sticks to metal and resin pieces. So as you can see, I use that Rust-Oleum on all of these pieces. That mailbox was that MDF board, so that's a great base coat for that. This is one tip I'd like to share that I have learned over flipping items, that now before I flip over my item to do the other side after that flat paint of Rust-Oleum is dry, is I spray paint them with polyacrylic as their top coat before I flip them and let that dry. That way I don't accidentally mar that paint up. That's what I said, that I always seal my Rust-Oleum in with this because it is such a great protective coat that I don't have to worry about when I'm flipping these pieces that I'm going to be marring up that smooth finish. And then now I can do the process on the other side. I flip them over. I use that Rust-Oleum paint and primer on the other to get the most coverage. I always try to do the bottom of the pieces first, and then I can let this dry and then seal them off with the polyacrylic also. Now when my spray paint is drying, I'm going back over and assessing the items that I have Waverly waxed, and this is why I shared that water tip early with you, that I wish I would remember that when I was waxing this piece of birch. That definitely went way darker than I wanted it to, so I'm just using some white wax trying to tone that down, because you know birch has that white on the side and that Waverly was just too dark, and I wish I would have remembered at this point to water it down. That's why I told you that earlier. So I wiped off, and then ended up sanding it to get it to be a little bit more matchy to the side of that birch. But I needed to do something to the top because it had little black specks of some type of a oil on it that just would not sand off. So that's why I had to do that. Then I thought, just for fun, I did think these little candlesticks went a little bit darker. Yet again, that's why I wanted to share that water tip. So I'm just taking a little bit of this white wax over this too, just to lighten this up a bit. You know, that's a nice thing about, you just keep doing an item until you love it. And then if you love it, then you know the person that's going to buy it is going to love it. So now it's on to putting the legs on these risers, and you want to make sure that any of your top coat, any of your wax is good and dry before trying to adhere the legs. So to adhere the legs to these little risers, since I cannot screw them in, I am using E6000 for that strong permanent bond, and the CA glue also is a strong permanent bond, but I just like to make sure that my legs are good and adhered on, and it takes a lot longer for the E6000 to dry, but when I'm using that Star Bond glue, I have a little bit more playtime than you do with like a hot glue, because I can move it around, get it where I need it to be, and then spray that activator on it that dries in 15 seconds, so I know that it's going to be where I place it. So for this slab of wood, I knew that it was too heavy for any of the feet I had. I did not want to have to drill holes in it. So Chris came up with the idea of putting it on a Lazy Susan turntable, and since that other piece of wood had gone darker than I wanted it to, I was just going to leave those little oil marks, little black spots on it, and just leave it as is. We did seal it with some Varathane finishing wax just to help the dryness, so hopefully it doesn't take on anything else. And so the Lazy Susan just is being screwed in. You're not really going to see it from the bottom. And then I did attach this piece of fabric to the bottom with just using some glue so that it wouldn't mar up anybody's furniture. So I had some of my pieces that I wanted to look like enamelware, and so for today, I know I usually use Kilz paint and primer, and I can achieve the same look that I'm going for, but after doing some chalk paint on some furniture pieces, and I had a lot of people that it was such a 50-50 on chalk paint, I could not believe that I thought just for this one video I would give some of your techniques a try. And I absolutely loved this little, I just absolutely loved this little toe, this little galvanized toe, I'm going to call it. And that I want to keep the interior of this black. So I was hoping that this would cover in like 2 coats. So I wanted to make it look like that enamelware where it has that black little seam. So I did end up buying some Waverly white chalk paint, and then some of these different brushes that were suggested off of that one video. I do not mind at all trying a different product or a different technique or a different brush. I just, as a flipper, I do what's cost efficient for us to resell, but I definitely wanted to give anybody that had suggested some different tips, I wanted to give them some of them a try, because I just think that is I think that as crafters out there, what works for one person may not work for another person, but I just loved getting all the comments and all the feedback from that video that I did not mind at all giving it a try for this flip. So then I'm going to go ahead and use that same chalk paint on this little mailbox, and I know you're all thinking, it was already white. Why are you repainting it white? There's just a different, when they mass produce items like this, it is just not a nice paint job. It gets marred up. That's why it gets thrifted, because the paint just does not stay and just does not look nice. So when I go to resell a piece, I want to know that that paint is on there, that it's going to stand the test of time. And we like to distress the pieces, so we like to see a little bit of that black from underneath when we go to sand it. It's kind of the same concept as if you were waxing with a dark wax over it. It's just a look that we're going for. It's just a different technique. So that is why I do what I do, and that is why people wax what they do with their wax. So like I said, it's just a couple different techniques, and you just figure out what works for you and what sells for you, or something that you want to do in your own home. And it's the same concept with these candlesticks. You're probably thinking they were already black. What did you do? It's just not a good paint job. Just does not stand this test of time. It mars up. So the same thing, I want to see some of that black, so that's why we spray paint it. I know that Rust-Oleum is going to stick completely well to this piece, that it's not going to remove when I go to distress it. And right now I am out of white candlesticks, so I needed some white candlesticks, so that's why they're getting painted white with the Waverly chalk paint also. And then with the little picture, I'm going to be doing the same thing. I want to make it look like enamelware, so I'm going in very gingerly, trying to keep this brush very level, try not to hit that raised little rim as much as I can. I do end up going back in and just completely painting the chickens. I did not like that look, but you know, that's the fun of paint. Try a little look and paint over it if you don't like it. And then I did need to go back in with a smaller brush on the areas that this could not get into. So now I'm on to my second coat, and I am doing a technique that I got a few comments on, where I dip my brush in water and then dip it in the paint, and then this is giving me a smoother paint job. I'm not sure if you noticed, but after I had Waverly white waxed this, that I didn't really feel that those legs of this riser matched. These happen to be a oak, so definitely showing way too much grain to match this little riser. So all I'm going to go back in with that Waverly chalk paint and just paint those so they're not so oakish compared to that birch. For this flip, I just had the hinges that were on that mailbox, and I like to clean them just with a little bit of Dawn dish soap. That gets them nice and prepped. Any dirt and debris will get off of them, and then I let them dry, and then I like to put them on a little piece of styrofoam so I can stick those little screws in there. We just shave what comes in shipping, and then I like the Rust-Oleum paint and primer, and I do the same concept now as I spray that on, and then I flip them over after I have polyacrylic them. So now on my black pieces, I'm going in and distressing them. That's just a look that I like. I like that distressing on the sharp edges of pieces like this just brings out the little details that are hidden by just one color of paint. So I'm just taking some sandpaper over the sharp edges of this little chicken to bring out the little feathers. And then over the entire flat part of the piece, I am just using some fine grit, some fine steel wool. And what that's doing is it's where I have polyacrylic to seal that paint in that top coat. I need to open it up a little bit because I like to Waverly wax this piece, and that just gives the wax something to grab onto. So if I did not do this, it would kind of just be sitting there and be easily rubbed off. So then I'm just using a brush to apply the Waverly wax, and then wipe it on with the brush, and then wipe off any excess, and then just let it sit and dry. And I just love the way that this Waverly wax just richens up this black paint. And then the same thing about this little clock. I'm glad that I was able to remove that face so I could get in there and distress the sharp edges of this piece. Anywhere that there's a raised, or that you think like if it was a real alarm clock that you would be touching and taking it off, that is where I'm just going to take this sandpaper and just give it a little bit of age. I absolutely love that it was white, so then the white will show through. And then I'm going to give a little bit of distressing just to the lids of the jars, just because I know that I can see somebody purchasing these for their bathroom, and the humidity and, Q-tips, cotton balls, whatever you decide to put into them, just to give them so they have that longevity. They're nice and sealed in there now, but that's just a little bit of distressing look that I like. And the same concept, steel wool these pieces and then Waverly wax over them and wipe off any excess of Waverly wax and let it dry. So this piggy didn't really have any sharp edges to distress. They were all rounded, so I left him as is. I just put some Waverly antiquing wax to seal and protect that paint, and then that just richens that up, and then just wiped off any of the excess. So I feel it was well worth my time to tape all this wood on this washboard off. It just made nice crisp lines. So including this washboard and that little wooden jar, I wanted to put laundry room on the washboard, so I just went to my Cricut, and these are fonts, these are designs that I took right off their store. And then I did 2 different Be Kinds, because Be Kind always sells well for me, and then sometimes when I'm doing something really small, as you can see, it does not cut out properly. So even though I like that look, it was just not something I could achieve that small. I have the best luck cutting out my stencils using Oracle vinyl that I get off Amazon, so that's what I choose to use. And I just centered them the way that I wanted on that laundry room. I just wanted the laundry room. And then I'll just go in with some masking tape, so when I'm using my makeup sponge from the Dollar Tree to apply, I'm just going to use the chalk paint since I'm already out in my workshop, and that's what I have to do my stencil with, but I just don't want to accidentally touch something. That's why I buy the dollar store masking tape. I don't like to take any chances when removing the masking tape or removing the vinyl, that I heat it up with a blow dryer. That just releases that sticky and ensures usually that I'm not going to be pulling off the previous paint. So now I'm on to distressing my mailbox. So what I'm doing here is I'm taking some sandpaper on the sharp edges of this mailbox. And so the harder you push, if you push just lightly, you can get to the black. If you want to see some of that white, then you push even harder. And then on the flat surfaces, I just go lightly to take any of that brush stroke feel that I might feel that was left behind. But I did the same thing where I wet my brush on that second coat of paint. But I did end up having to add 3 coats. It's just the coverage that I was looking for. And as you can see on this mailbox, I do always complete the back of my pieces. That is just something that I like. I don't want to see somebody walking to the cash register this and seeing a messy back. So for me, it's well worth the time to complete the entire piece, including the inside. Now to give this piece that smooth finish that I am looking for, I wet a rag and then I'm just water distressing this chalk paint. I have to say that I do find that the Waverly chalk paint is distressing the way that I want, and I'm getting that nice smooth finish. I did end up having to do 3 coats just for the look that I was going for, the look that I was used to, but I do like how my little chickens are distressing. Now I'm going back in and doing the same thing with these candlesticks and water distress them, trying to hit that sharp and then trying to smooth out any brush strokes that I may feel. Unfortunately, I am so used to a smooth finish, but I'm glad that I tried this. I did like how all these pieces turned out. And the little chicken that's just kind of has blended in with this grouping. Let's not forget about this cute little paper mache chicken. And then I'm going on this little toe, and the same thing, I'm just trying to keep that off of that black, and I'm just trying to smooth down any of those paint. I don't mind showing a little bit of the black through, but I really am just looking for that smooth paint. So on these 2 pieces, since I stenciled with that chalk paint, I know that they can be water distressed, so I'm sealing them in using some polyacrylic. And then I'm just going back in and sanding the legs. I think that white blends with this little piece of birch much better. And then I will seal that in using some Varathane finishing wax. And I'm actually sealing all these chalk paint in with the Varathane finishing wax. I did buy a little bottle of the Waverly wax, also just in the natural, but this is just always my go-to, so I wanted to try to see how this did, and I wanted to make sure that I went it a little bit on the gingerly side because I wasn't sure if that would start removing some of this chalk paint or not. So now that I'm finishing all these pieces up, it's on to replacing the hinges on this mailbox, and I just absolutely love that pop of that crisp black against white. I don't think I will ever tire of this look. So let's go through and remember what they looked like before, and then I will show you the afters. And then also on my Sunday Funday video is where I include the prices that I will be reselling my flips for. I resell in a local antique mall. So on my pricing, I live in a very rural town. I cannot charge big city prices, or I would just have to dust my stuff a lot. So when it comes to pricing, I just share with you what I price items as. And as a reseller, you just have to decide what you think and what you feel you can get for an item. When it comes to my smaller items like this, I like to have lots of items under $20 in my retail booth. I feel that it's very easy for somebody to be carrying a $20 bill around, and they are happy to just purchase one item out of your booth. And the most thing you ever want to do is get that buyer into your booth, and at least if they come home with one item, hopefully they will come back for more. So this is just what has worked for me, and I hope I have inspired you to look at thrifted items or even items laying around your house in a much different way. If you're just tired of your decor and you just want to update it, it's just amazing what a little bit of paint will do. Remember, if you like these kind of videos, don't forget to hit that subscription button so we know that this is the type of video that you like to watch, and we will keep making them. So here's that little wagon that I just fell in love with, and I could not wait to make over and use it in my Christmas decor. And then this is how I styled it. This is a riser that my husband makes, and I thrifted that little porcelain deer last year, and I was so lucky to find those cute little brush bottle trees, and then I used some Epsom salt as the snow with some battery operated lights. Well, thank you so much for watching today's video, and I just want to share with you the why and how I do these makeovers. I'd like to share them and inspire others if this is something that they would like to do, to maybe get into reselling themselves, or just to do your items at home just to freshen up your decor. Remember, this is just a technique that works for me. Color choices, there is a rainbow out there of color choices. Just because I choose to do the colors I do does not mean that you cannot choose a different color. It's just the way of fixing things, looking at thrifted items, things around your house in a new way. So I'd like to thank Yanni and Diane for hosting this with me. So don't forget to click on their link down in my description, including the playlist of all these talented YouTube creators. So as always, thank you YouTube family for supporting us by watching our channel, giving us a quick comment of your kind supportive words, and a nice thumbs up. That lets YouTube know that you like this kind of content and they will keep recommending us. If you're new to my channel, please consider hitting that subscription button along with the notification bell so you know when I've uploaded a new video.